you curious to know how to defeat China?
How is China leveraging its economic strength in this new era of modern neo-colonization?
Do you feel the urge of getting into the battle and see our soldiers raise the flag on those treacherous high points?
This video will provide an in-depth understanding of Chinese military and economic strategy that could greatly benefit nations like India to be well prepared and counter Chinese offenses in the future.
In our previous video on CCP virus, we briefly mentioned about China's strategy to dominate the world and how it manipulates its currency to gain unfair trade advantages. India, the US, Japan, and to some extent Australia and Germany are the few major superpower countries that have a strong opposition to China on world stage.
We included Russia in this comparison purely because of its rivalry with US. India's relation with US will eventually decide which side of the pendulum Russia would lean into. While China and the US enjoy geographies with abundant natural resources spanning across 9 million square kilometers, India has about 1/3 of everything the US and China hold. Russia has the largest area among all three, and its vast timberland oil reserves have still not been explored. Chinese greed to take Siberia into possession could eventually lead to a Sino-Russian war in the future.
The population of China and India is 4 times that of the US. India is the most diverse country in the world and is the birthplace of 4 of the world's major religions, namely Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. This is both a boon and a bane. Boon in the sense it is difficult for any country to completely break India within due to its multilingualistic cultural barrier, and bane as it is difficult to keep all groups united without a common nationalistic agenda.
US spends about 3.1% of its GDP, which accounts for $610 billion on the military budget, while China is about 1.9%, India about 2.5%, and Russia about 4.3%. Considering GDP of US and China is way higher than India and Russia, all these countries invest significantly on military.
The primary strength of China and India is in its ability to mobilize troops quickly. With over 2 million active military personnel, both China and India could deploy 100,000 soldiers within a few hours across any location within its borders, which makes insurgencies over land and sea practically impossible.
India's core military strength is in its interagency adaptation and maneuvering. With more than 63 regiments, India's infantry is revered and considered as the fiercest across the continent. India and China can call upon 300 million troops over battle if required. This number itself devastates morals of its opponents.
Tank capability is relatively similar between all three. However, the US and Russia hold a significant number of highly sophisticated armored fighting vehicles. The technology for the same is currently unavailable with China and India.
Due to its vast land area, Russia is highly dependent on its artillery power, and hence the numbers significantly exceed that of any country. Fighter aircraft sets US apart from all other countries and is one of the largest exporters of fighter aircrafts to its allied states.
China has invested humongous amount in building its naval forces. This is evident with its presence in South China Sea and opposing countries like Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, Philippines, along with India staring at its shores.
If you put the numbers alone, no country can take down India, China, or the US. At worst, a war-like situation between these countries could only lead to a border skirmish like the one near the Galwan Valley.
So self-assured, a significant war between these countries would either end up as the next world war, resulting in catastrophic effect with no country winning at the end and none of us alive to even talk about it. A situation like this is not remotely possible considering the entire globe will be decimated with such a war. United Nations would never allow this to happen.
Your next question would then be, how do I show retribution and defeat China? Take over territories such as Aksai Chin, Gilgit-Baltistan, parts of Arunachal Pradesh that have been illegally occupied or administered by China.
Well, the only way to gain an advantage over China is to use their strategy against them. Though China is a communist country, very secretive about everything they do, still it's simple to decode Chinese military strategy if we were to analyze its past behavior.
Look at this picture where all three presidents, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, Xi Jinping, are cozying up to each other. Jiang Zemin once said, "History shows that anything conducive to our national stability is good, and hide your strength and bide your time."
Hu Jintao quoted, "In order to address world economic imbalances, countries around the world should make joint efforts to adjust their economic structure."
Xi Jinping quotes, "A military is built to fight. Our military must regard combat capability as a criterion to meet in all its work and focus on how to win when it is called on."
These three leaders are a classic example of an ancient Chinese military treatise, The Art of War, from the famous Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu, which seem to perfectly fit into everything China has done, doing, and plan to do in the future.
Art of War, Chapter 1, titled Laying Plans, has three essential agendas. Think carefully before engaging, that is to prepare. Observe first to avoid conflicts. Act and focus on the way. Over the last 40 years, China has not gone into battle with any neighboring countries. And this reflects from the conservative approach taken by Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. During this period, China has grown significantly and its GDP reached an all-time high of 14.2% in 2007.
China has silently grown to become the largest chemical manufacturing economy. Chinese construction workers have gained significant experience in building its infrastructure, airways, roadways, railways, seaports, and multiple factories across the country, and launched itself as the world's factory during this period.
With more than 4,000 artificial intelligence companies, China has made AI as its national priority. Artificial intelligence is heralded as transformational for humankind, and some even say it will disrupt industries and societies and alter power across nations. China built a huge pile of weapons with all the returns it gained from foreign investments. Newly available data suggests that China is the world's second largest arms producer, behind the United States and ahead of Russia. The icing on the cake happened with China hosting the Beijing Olympics with much pomp and fare in 2008.
China has now laid plans for its expansions in coming years through its expansionist philosophies adopted by Chinese Communist Party.
At this instant, when tensions are flaring up on all our borders, we shouldn't lose focus on our strategic ambition. As the chapter indicates, don't get instigated by news surrounding loss of land in Galwan Valley. Think carefully before engaging your enemy. Prepare your army secretively. Build your internal growth.
For India, if we must grow as a nation, we need to bind ourselves to our nation's foremost principle, unity in diversity. Our army consists of people from all races and religion. This battle against India's enemy could only be won if we all stay united and build our nation together. While China achieved this through authoritarianism, India should achieve this by getting rid of hate among religious factions.
Art of War, Chapter 2, Waging War. It is all about utilizing your money and lives, strategizing to strike quickly, and use enemies' resources instead of your own. This concept was applied beautifully by China through its three global ambition components: Belt and Road Initiative, 5G, domination of the South China Sea. In the history of the world, very few powers or no power has been able to dominate both land and sea at the same time. But China, through Belt and Road Initiative, is trying to do that. Belt and Road Initiative is effectively a China-centered trading network. As of 2020, there are 138 countries that are now part of a series of economic development projects that connect Chinese markets to Central Asia by road, also known as Silk Road Economic Belt, and through South Asia via the South China Sea, going through the Indian Ocean to the African continent and to Europe, and increasingly even in Latin America and the Caribbean Sea. This is also referred to as maritime sea roads.
Chinese institutions are lending to countries often with very opaque agreements that no one knows the terms of until there's a bankruptcy or a failure to deliver or pay back the terms of the loans.
These agreements are often signed through outright bribery of the local officials and are almost exclusively to the advantage of Chinese lending institutions. What we see happening is what is now called either debt diplomacy or predatory lending.
China has indirectly waged war against all the countries that have signed up for the Belt and Road Initiative in the name of development.
Sri Lanka handed over Hambantota port. Djibouti, which was home to the US military main base in Africa, ceded control of a critical port to Beijing. Countries like Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Maldives, Mongolia, Pakistan, and Montenegro are giving away part of its physical assets to China to cover up the debt. Likes of Bangladesh, Maldives, and Nepal are now looking to renegotiate the terms of these economic development agreements.
India controls a very strategic position in the Indian Ocean. For India, getting Sri Lanka on board with India would mean complete domination of Indian Ocean. This by far would cripple the Sea Route initiative and shift the balance in India's favor. A strategic alliance with US would mean China has to pay heavy taxes moving goods and oil through Pacific and Indian Ocean. In times of war, China's oil imports could take a big hit as 25% of its oil imports are carried out over Indian Ocean.
We will detail China's 5G and South China Sea domination in our next episode, Art of War Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem, and Chapter 4, Tactical Disposition. Chapter 5, Use of Energy, we will detail Chinese defense strategies. Chapter 6, we will perform SWOT analysis. Chapter 7 to 12, we will take you through Chinese military positions, tactics, maneuvering capability, classification of terrain, and finally, with Chapter 13, we will revisit 5G and Chinese spying network.
If you haven't already subscribed for our channel, then do it right now, as you will be amazed by the details we will be sharing in the next 11 chapters and how India and other countries could turn over the page on China and cause its ultimate downfall.